Okay, let's take a look at a function and what to do with the equation form of the function. Functions are really just equations with special names. They do have a couple conditions. We talked about a little bit about how the x's couldn't have more than one y friend, and so they have a couple of specific conditions that must be met, and they're usually written in what we call function notation. The first letter is the name of the function. So this function's name is f, and we might have similar equations that have different names. For example, we might have a life expectancy equation for males and females. They're similar and they might be presented together, and you might tell them apart based on their function name, f and m. The x that we have here that is in the parentheses is something a lot of people like to try and solve for, and you can't solve for it in the parentheses. This is just telling you what you put in. This is your input letter. So what are you putting in? If we were looking at life expectancies for females, it'd be saying, what do you put into this equation? Do you put in their current age or their weight, or what are you putting in as an input value? So that's what the first part on the left-hand side of the equal sign gives us. It gives us the function name and the letter we're inputting, and it definitely does not always have to be x. Now what we're going to do is we're going to find f of 4. And what that means is we're going to input 4, so everywhere we see an x, I'm going to input a 4. So I'm going to go ahead and everywhere I see that x, I'm going to fill that 4 in. And now we'll do some evaluating. Now that didn't really look like a parenthesis, did it? Just so you know, technically you could put this all in the calculator at once if you were really good with parentheses. I don't necessarily recommend it. What I might recommend is doing it kind of piece by piece. That cuts down on the probability you're going to make an error. So let's see if I can get my calculator up here. And let's take a look at how we might use the calculator to do this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make sure my calculator's in scientific view. Up on the top, I'm going to put it in scientific view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I am going to first cube the 4, and then I have a cubed button right here, cubed is 64, then I'll multiply it by 2. And I'm going to get 128. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the 4 squared. I'm going to clear this calculator out. 4 squared times 4 is 64. And actually 3 times 4 I can do in my head, so I'm going to go ahead and use my head to do that, although you could use the calculator if you wanted to. And then I'm going to go ahead and use the calculator for this. I just get really wary of putting it all in at once, because if you do make an error putting something in, or if you don't follow the order of operations correctly, you do end up with a incorrect answer. So we want to try and avoid that. Okay? And what we get out is 194. Now there is no need to solve for anything on the left hand side. Many times I'll get students who try and divide by 4 and say f equals, and that's not what this means. This is a reminder. The function's name is f. We put a 4 in and we got out a 194. So it's not that you have to solve for f. This is just a little notation thing. It's reminding you what the function's name is, what value you put in for x, and what your final solution was. Okay? And just a word of caution, as always, be really careful if you have negatives, working with those negatives. You might find if you do have a negative, it's good to use a parenthesis in your calculator. So if you're working a negative 4 cubed, I might put in a parenthesis. Let me clear that out first. Parenthesis. Oh, let me do that again. Parenthesis 4, hit the negative sign, close the parenthesis, and then cube it. so that I'm sure I get the right answer. Sometimes calculators will come out with incorrect responses if you don't use the parentheses. Now this one did okay. The Windows one does do okay, but some of your physical calculators, and you guys are all working with different ones, some of them handle that differently. So it's just something good to be aware of.